He says, oh, really? And so then he was another teacher, and he was from Philadelphia. I mean, it was just such a wonderful feeling. So I was into him. Then I'm walking, and I'm going to this mall, and I hear somebody behind me. A sister in Vietnam. And I turned around, and here it was, another black American, a jazz singer. And she and I hung out, drank coffee at the mall, did a little bit of shopping. So, it's just something that the familiar, you need to know that there's some place that you exist. That I'll be home in 3 weeks or whatever. But it is good to see somebody else. But it's not like that prevents me from talking to other people when I'm gone. But it's just something about it. It's just something about it. It's just I learn to appreciate other people that are like me more when I'm somewhere else. A couple of years ago when me and my kids were at this restaurant in Zanzibar, and I needed to go to the bathroom and go down 3 flights. It was this long, long, long hallway. It was like a tunnel, so long. And this woman passes me. She says, "Where's the bathroom?" And I'm like, keep going all the way around there. And I'm like, "Where are you from?" She says, "Atlanta." "Where are you from?" I'm like, "New Jersey." And then we just left in the kept. Then she came and introduced her kids to me. They work for the State Department. And then, for the next 3 days, Stella and I, another teacher who was from Atlanta, just retired a couple of days ago. We hung out, walked around and explored. So, it's just cool. But I personally, I could travel alone. I have absolutely no problem. I would prefer to do it that way. Because I just run into really cool people. But, it's just nothing. I would do that. If I could choose between a $2,000 couch and a $2,000 vacation, I'd take the vacation. I would take the vacation in a minute, because it's always in your head. Smell or a token or something will remind you of that. And once you go, you can't stop going. And I'm not the
if you can afford it.
I think that I don't think it's that expensive. I don't see...
It is expensive. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it.
Well, these tickets that we just went to Marrakesh, they were like $900.
Come on. How many people can afford $900?
People...
And that's just you and your son. What about if they got 2 kids?
You leave one of them home like I did.
No, you want them to have the experience too.
Yeah.
You want them to have... And that's the point. The point is that you want them to get away to have the experience.
Well, if it were somebody had to go, I would send a kid instead of myself.
No, but you got to go to lead them, though.
Yeah, if it was a program,
Or if it's a program,
yes,
like
I would send my child before myself.
Like what is that? Some ambassadors. I forget what they call it. It's that
people
program.
to people,
which is the most expensive.
Very expensive.
Very expensive.
And they'll send that out to people in the district. And
I actually sent my son to people out in Yellowstone Park for like 10 days. It was good. It's pretty good. He had to go there on his own. Figure it out, navigate the waters. It teaches you some independence, rather than living here in South Orange and Maplewood. And the first time you leave South Orange and Maplewood is when you're going to go to college.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a bad idea, man. All of a sudden, you see all this freedom. I'm on my own once again. So, you just revel in the freedom.
Yeah, and I think that by traveling, you'll learn the importance of having another language. You'll see that there's this whole other world out there.
It's a whole other world.
How people do things different, but then at the same time that people are basically the same everywhere. They're the same everywhere, the same wants and needs and complaints. You can be walking and looking at a bunch of kids playing with their cell phone. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It's just the same, So the sameness of it, you think that people think we're so unique, when in reality, human beings are human beings.
So you think
I just get so excited with this thought. It's just the action.
So you think we're all the same? We're not different?
I think people all over want to be happy
Mm-hmm.
and peaceful and have things.
Mm-hmm.
And have things.
Hmm.
I wouldn't think that's any different for, kids in China or India or
Yeah, it's different.
Zimbabwe
It's
or
different.
any place else.
It's different. It's different. Because I think what it is, though, is that in certain countries, kids are more happy. Some kids are very contented with whatever their lot is. Some kids are contented. But some kids are contented without a cell phone because they don't know cell phones. Some kids are contented without a television because they don't know about television. You see, if you don't know about it, it doesn't really affect you until you learn about it. You know what that's like? It's like this. If you driving a BMS,
I don't know what the heck that is.
a Black Man Sentra, the BMS, Black Man Sentra. You're driving a Sentra, a Nissan Sentra. To you, that car is the best car. Absolutely the best. But then if you go and you drive a Lexus, as an example, and you see the difference in how the car goes over a hump, it's like when it goes over a hump, you don't go anywhere. You just sit there, right? And you get a Lexus. It's very difficult for you to go back to a Sentra. It is. Because it's like, you're working for a big company, and all of a sudden, you decide you want to work for you're working for a company that has 1,000 employees, and you're going to work for a company with 100 employees. It's a big difference. It's not easy to go back. It's not easy.
So, but I don't get your point right there. So, and
Well, that's all I'm trying to tell you is, when you get something, it's like a person. If you take a person out of their background, you take them out of where they are, and you put them to a certain level, they're not going to want to go back there. Like, I don't want to go back to when I was poor. I don't want to go back there.
well, how? I mean, and as time moves on, I recognize, how fortunate I really am.
Yeah, you were very fortunate.
But
Very fortunate.
so in thinking of it to go back, I mean, I doubt
You don't want to go back.
I could ever go back to, I don't
You
know.
don't
what I
doubt
would
you
ever
can go back.
to. So
You don't want to go back.
I mean, the only thing I could go back to is not being an independent person. But to be in a developing country or a country, the outside circumstances, the roads in some cases, some of the roads in Tanzania, I mean, it's like the last time I was on this road, my ex-brother-in-law's like, this is a shortcut. I mean, the car, it just hit so many bumps, I almost cried. I'm just like, I can't. This is making me angry. I was getting angry. There's somehow, I don't know if it's that case for everybody, but for me, after a while, you don't even see some of the things. Maybe because in your reality, at home, I have a comfortable house, but you don't see. I mean, people are people. They laugh at things. They're blasting the same awful music that these kids are playing. The clothes aren't so different. They're different cultural cues that people have. But in essence, what I've noticed is that people, have the same wants and needs. I mean, because they're human needs. And they sit around and laugh, and you laugh with them, and you laugh at things they say, and they laugh at things you say, And the thing about being somewhere in Africa, and I can only talk about East Africa, Tanzania, Kenya specifically.
You been to Kenya too?
Yeah. That, here you are.
Did you go to Eldoret?
What's that?
Eldoret is a place high up in the mountains.
No, I've just been to Nairobi.
Okay. That's the capital, is it?
Yes. Or it's a major city. I mean, I haven't been to Mombasa, which is on the Indian Ocean, which I guess I would like to see at some point. I've never been to Lake Victoria region of Kenya or Tanzania, which I guess
Well, Kenyans are very intelligent, you know.
Huh?
They speak with, 25 different languages?
Well, I mean, there are all these different groups, but most people speak their own so-called tribal language, and then they speak English because whoever their colonial master is, that's the language they've spoken. And, of course, they all speak Swahili because that's the language of East
They could
Africa.
survive anywhere, man. Africans, people from Africa, there's Africans in Italy speaking fluent Italian.
Well, I mean, I think that, I don't know about all the other people, but I've noticed, that Africans, a lot of them have numerous languages, a lot of their tribal languages. And then, like, my ex-husband spoke Nyamwezi, and then he spoke Sakuma, the language, the tribe next door, which, had a little bit of the same words.
How come you didn't
And
learn
then he
to
spoke
speak any of those?
Swahili, and then he spoke French, and then he spoke German, and he spoke English. So, you're just taught like that. I mean, it's... my students today, somebody says, well, how come people always want to go pay and help Africans, give them money? Nobody wants to give us money. When you're deep in the bush or whatever, the woods are deep, far out, away from a city. You see some little kid, and he's got, like this little twinkle in his eye. The kid could be a mathematician or some great scientist, but he doesn't have the resources available to him.
He has zero.
But I bet that kid, if you, asked him to compute immediately, he could do that, without having to pull out a calculator. I've seen that, It's, there's this, like, this glow in certain people's eyes and a dullness that can pervade their eyes if they stay here too long.
Don't you think some people exploit the less fortunate in Africa?
I think that some people do that. There was another article here that I was looking at where this woman, and I'm trying, there's no connection to this, but I'll read just this first paragraph. A few months ago, I read the blog of a Christian woman on a mission trip to Africa. In the blog, she expressed disbelief that she was around a city and that there were middle-class people and people who weren't starving or in need of her American brand of Christian service. I read the blog and I felt angry. I was angry at the woman for being an ugly American and an ugly Christian, and then it occurred to me I knew very little about Africa, whoever was writing this. But I don't know what I did with this article, and I don't know why I didn't repost it, or if I put it on something else. But from what I call this woman, I guess she was in Kenya and probably in Nairobi and hanging out with some regular family, and, these images or this perception that you get, like everyone is starving and, life is just, it's one big desert.
But there's a charity. It's a charity, right?
Well, charities
but
exploit that.
That's what they got to put out. They put out the most deprived, kids that are...
situations of people in need.
Yeah.
And but then after a while, all of that ends up making you callous and having a level of, I guess what it's called, donor fatigue, where, you're tired. Can't these people ever help themselves?
No, they can't. They can't. But,
when you, God, oh my God, it's like this every time you go. When I went the last time to Tanzania, my ex-husband took my kids there, and so I met them. And from there, from Dar es Salaam, they met me in Zanzibar, and we were at the beach on the east coast of Zanzibar for a day or two, and then went to town, and then we went back to Dar es Salaam. And they understood what I mean. You can't explain this to anybody. No one would believe you, number one, what we see, and you can't explain it to anybody. It's beyond... You
poverty.
Would just have to...
Poverty you're talking about?
No. It's the beauty of it all is beyond anything that anyone here could understand, because this perception that people have is just so deep-rooted. But here we are on the east coast of Zanzibar. If you Google that, the east coast of Zanzibar, you think your beaches... this is the most beautiful beach...
That's the media.
...I've ever seen. When I'd ask my students, are there beaches in Africa? I've had students tell me it's impossible. because all they see in their head is jungles and
That's
flies
it.
and deserts.
Tarzan and
Now,
Jane.
but here you are on this. We were at this beach, and I